Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And my name is Greg Knapp. Hey, how you doing? I'm in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show. Hope you have enormous plans to celebrate our nation's independence. The 4th of July is afoot. Get ready and give your dog a little Valium because they really don't like those fireworks. Oh, man, we got a lot to do. 844-DIG-CHAD to get you on board, 844-DIG-CHAD. You can also go to thechadshow.com, and don't forget to follow on Twitter as well. When you go to the Twitter feed, all you got to do is type in @ChadBensonShow, and you can follow him. We got a lot to get into, and first thing I want to talk about is the 4th of July celebration, because President Trump wants a big one on the lawn, and, of course, the left is going nuts. They've really gotten themselves into this state that they cannot allow anything this president does to not be seen as the worst thing that's ever happened in America, that is unprecedented in America. And he's bringing in tanks. No president's ever done that. Yes, you in the back. Didn't President Eisenhower have tanks for the far? Take that guy out of the room. Oh, we're not looking back that far. No, this has never been done before. Never. And he's going to have flyovers. Yes, you in the back. Don't they have flyovers at like every major sporting event? Get that person out of here. We don't have flyovers. It's obvious that he's trying to become a dictator. It's obvious that he's like Kim Jong-un. It's obvious he's like Vladimir Putin. It's obvious he's like Xi Jinping. It's obvious that this is what he wants to do and crush the spirit of every American and destroy the country. And he's a dictator. And how can you ever let this happen? Except he's simply letting people see a couple tanks and have a cool flyover. Now, listen. I don't want a huge military march down the street in front of the White House, and I think President Trump would love to have something like that. He can't because, number one, it would cost too much money. Number two, it would really damage some of our streets because they're not built for things that are that heavy. So he's not doing it, and I wouldn't like that because it does kind of remind me of the stuff that goes on in these dictatorships. But what President Trump got excited about was when he saw it on Bastille Day in France, which had nothing to do with being a dictator. And I think, listening to the guy, if you take him at his word, he wants the people to see how great our military is. He wants people to see how awesome it is, and that's what he's excited about. Now, I don't know him that well, so who knows if there's something else. But this idea that somehow this is going to make him a dictator, just like these people that say, he might stay for more than 2 terms. Or even if he loses in this election, he might just stay in the White House. Yeah, you in the back? He can't stay because people would, like, physically remove him. Get that person out of here. I mean, really think about it. I mean, all you have to do is think logically. President Trump loses. Everybody says President Trump loses. The papers say he loses. The newspapers say he loses. Everybody who counts the votes say he loses. So what? He comes out and says, I'm not leaving? And you think that's just going to happen? And everybody's just going to say, okay. Are you insane? Well, you never know with Trump because his supporters might rally and then there'll be a revolution. You are insane. If you really think that's going to happen, you are certifiable. And there are people on the left and in the media who are truly even giving that a thought. And that's why Trump loves to troll him. He even said it. He goes, yeah, I love to say that kind of stuff. That maybe it'll be 2 terms, maybe more. He said, I just love to troll the media like that. He loves to troll you guys. And you're taking the bait. So he's not creating a dictatorship by having a couple of tanks on the mall. Oh, my word. Notice these people weren't upset at all when Obama was using executive orders to go around Congress when he wasn't supposed to. Unconstitutional. I got a pen and I got a phone. I don't need Congress. Oh, bravo, Mr. President. Trump brings in a tank. Oh, it's going to take over the world. It's just going to go. And over at WUSA9.com, local D.C. affiliate, don't panic. Army warns D.C. residents armored vehicles rolling through neighborhoods. Tanks and armored personnel carriers are passing through D.C. neighborhoods this week en route to the National Mall for President Trump's salute to America. So don't panic. Too late. They've already panicked. Why would you panic? Just because, are you that stupid? That you don't realize it's 4th of July? You haven't been paying attention to the news that they're bringing in a couple tanks? These people are insane. I used to say that figuratively. Now I really mean it literally. They are certifiable. And case in point, Joy Reid. Now, the only defense I have of Joy Reid here is that she's on MSNBC. And you have to know who your target market is. You know, have you ever started your own business? What's the first thing you got to figure out? All right, what's my target market? What's my niche that I'm going into? I mean, I can't be something for everyone. If you're for everyone, you're really for no one. You heard that before, right? The riches are in the niches. So you got to find your niche. What's your target market? Who am I aiming for? Well, MSNBC is aiming for the far lefty with a tinfoil hat on. So Joy Reid has to feed that audience. Now, she may really believe it, too. I don't know, because she used to be a homophobe, and now she says she's the person to defend you from homophobes. But, oh, wait, that was because somebody hacked her website. Oh, wait, then she admitted she really did it. But, oh, wait, that was a totally different person. But, oh, wait, it was the same person. And I can't even keep up with it. So I don't know whether she believes it or not. But Joy Reid is on MSNBC, and they're discussing these tanks. I mean, it's an invasion. I mean, the whole U.S. Army's coming to D.C. Isn't it 2 tanks on the mall? Shut that guy up. It's unbelievable, in a flyover. And so they're discussing what might be going on. So the first thing that Joy Reid is talking about, you got to understand President Trump. You've got to understand that he loves dictators. Cut 5, please.
You mentioned, France and Kim Jong-un, who, Donald Trump greatly admires Kim Jong-un. He sort of aspires to be sort of a mini, Putin or Kim Jong-un. He wants to be have that kind of absolute power. He claims Kim Jong-un's people just adore him. Well, they have no choice because he'd throw them in a gulag and probably kill them.
Okay. Trump has never said that his people adore him. I told you a couple of days ago I didn't like the fact that Trump came out and said in front of Kim Jong-un, it's an honor for me to be with you, and it's an honor that you came to meet me, and we have a great relationship. I don't like all that flattery. But he never said he wants to be like Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin. That's just nonsense. President Obama, at this time in his term, compared to Trump, went outside the Constitution way more than people have accused Trump of doing. But that's their starting point, is that he loves them, wants to be like them. And there's been zero evidence of that. Do you understand why we keep going through the courts and all the way up to the Supreme Court on some of the things President Trump is doing? If he was a dictator, he could just do it. And he's not. It was President Trump that said, President Obama, who said, it'd be a lot easier if I was like the president of China. I mean, he just gets to say what he wants and it happens. You remember that? Oh, but, he just said it would be easier. He didn't say who wanted it. Okay, all right, but Trump wants it. But then we get into Joy Reid explaining. You got to understand the difference between a military parade in France and a military parade in North Korea, and what this president wants and why this is a threat. And wait till you hear who it's a threat to. Now, some of this Joy Reid gets right, and then she really gets it wrong. Cut 6.
You think about the Bastille Day celebration. What is that celebration about? What is the message that's meant to be sent by the military armada that's rolling down the streets of Paris? It's a message to tyrants. What Bastille Day represents is the victory over tyrannical rule, over the king, and over the attempt for the king to return. The storming of the Bastille was about victory over tyrants. What is the message when Kim Jong-un rolls tanks down the streets of his capital? The message is to democracies. It's the messages to people like us, to Western democracies.
No, not really. She got it wrong. I'll explain in a second.
Because we, the unified North Korean people, will defeat you. We have nukes. Be afraid of us. So what is the message Donald Trump is trying to send by rolling tanks down Constitution Avenue? Who is that message to? It's certainly not to tyrants, because he likes tyrants. He loves tyrants. It's not to Putin. It's not to Kim Jong-un. It's not to the Saudis. Is it to our friends? Or is it to us? Is it to the resistance in this country? I got tanks. I have this military armada. The message is a threat. But it's always a threat when you roll out your military. But it's to whom is the threat? And I suspect that the threat is to his fellow Americans. And I hate to say that, but I think that Donald Trump styles himself a tyrant, not a defeater of tyrants.
It's always a threat when you roll out your military. And I have to say, I think Donald Trump styles himself a tyrant, not a defeater of tyrants. See, it's a threat to the American people that President Trump has a couple tanks out there. she, I believe, is serious. And there are people at MSNBC saying, daggum right, man. Oh, we got to get this guy out now. How can we get him out before the next election? He might not leave after the next election. He's bringing in tanks. We got to worry about our own military. I can't She's gotten this so wrong. Okay, let's start with this when she says about Kim Jong-un rolling tanks down the streets of his capital. She said the message is to democracies. The message is to people like us, to Western democracies, you better be careful because we, the unified North Korean people, will defeat you. No, Joy. That's not why they have those military marches in North Korea. It's for Kim Jong-un to tell his own people, look, this is my power. I got the military on my side. You want to cross me for freedom? You want to cross me to try to get rid of my regime? You think it's wrong that, we're making you guys eat grass because we're taking all the food and we're running a horrible communist regime that squelches every freedom you can think of? Try and cross me. I got this military to shut you down. You think you can take on some tanks? Bring it on, baby. He's telling his own people that they better not do anything. Not us. We know what North Korea has. We don't have to see a stupid parade. We've got intelligence agencies that know exactly how many nukes they have. What are you talking about? You don't even know what you're talking about with that. But then she says, Donald Trump is trying to send the message by rolling tanks down Constitution Avenue. Who is that message to? Certainly not the tyrants, because he loves tyrants. Really? Look at what he's actually done. Look at what he's actually done with China in terms of going after them for their unfair trade practices and the movement that he's gotten on that so far. Look at what he's done to Vladimir Putin with sanctions. And in fact, they've been tightened since Barack Obama was president, not loosened. But he said nice things about him. What has he done? What has he done? So then he says, is it to our friends, to our Western democracies, who he doesn't particularly like? Really? You really think President Trump is trying to send a message to France and Great Britain that we're going to attack them if they try to mess with us? This is insanity, literally. The message is a threat. Is it to the resistance in this country? Okay, there is no resistance in this country. There are a bunch of idiots who are offended by what Trump does. There's no resistance. The resistance was a movement in France against the Nazis. They risked their lives resisting tyrannical rule. It has nothing to do with these idiots who are just offended by what Trump says. They don't deserve to be called the resistance, and I refuse to do it. Joy Behar has officially jumped the shark, if she hadn't before. What do you think? Oh, there is another story about this, though. Is President Trump joining the swamp on what's happening on July 4th? I'll explain that in just a second. 844-DIG-CHAD. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show.
Experiencing separation anxiety? That's dumb. Check out Chad 24/7 at his website, ChadBensonShow.com, and on iTunes, free. The Chad Benson Show. Never feel lonely again.
And my name's Greg Knapp. Glad to have you aboard. You can find out more about me, GregoryBKnapp.com, and my new podcast is up at Apple Podcasts. It's not about politics. It's about finding your purpose, living your passion. Just type in my name, Gregory Knapp. It'll pop right up. Love to have you subscribe to that. Chad Benson Show, I'm in for him, and we were talking about what's going on with the big 4th of July celebration in Washington, D.C., and Huffington Post is very upset. Oh, my goodness, listen to this. The RNC is giving out tickets to Trump's hijacked 4th of July celebration. What had been a non-political, non-partisan celebration on the National Mall will now likely be a multi-million-dollar taxpayer-financed political rally. Critics worry. I mean, not us, but critics worry. Okay, all right. Couple things here. First of all, it's always been multi-million dollars. Well, they're taking $2.5 million from the national parks to help pay for this. How much did they pay for it when Obama was in? Let's kind of compare apples to apples, adjust for inflation. Let's see if it's really that much different. I highly doubt that it is very much different at all. Okay? Secondly, turning a non-political, non-partisan celebration into a taxpayer-financed political rally. Why? Well, because the Republican National Committee is offering major donors tickets to Trump's speech in prime seating in a special VIP area in front of the memorial. Okay? Here's what the RNC said about that. This is standard practice for the RNC to receive a small number of tickets to events, just as the DNC did under Democrat presidents. Oh. Well, I still shouldn't do it. Right. Was this going on under Obama with the DNC giving out tickets to their donors? You bet it was. And where was HuffPo then? They didn't care. This is the hypocrisy that people just are tired of. Okay? Now, I will say this, though. I was talking to a friend about this earlier today on a podcast. And he said, you know, Greg, if Trump is to drain the swamp, he's the guy here to drain the swamp, then why doesn't he drain the swamp here and say, I'm not going to do that anymore? I don't care that the DNC's been handing out special VIP tickets for the 4th of July celebration. I'm not going to do that because this is the people's celebration. This is not for high donors gaining access to special areas in D.C. In fact, you know what I'm going to do with the tickets that I have for that special area? If we're going to have a special area, then we're going to give it to the families of enlisted military men and women. And we're going to let them sit up front because they never get to sit up front. So here's their choice and their chance to sit up front and get the best seats in the House because they're the ones who are putting their lives on the line for the freedom that we enjoy. Just like so many back in 1776 and throughout the entire Revolutionary War put their lives on the line to actually give us this independence. How about that? I love that. I think that would be awesome. Trump would be, you couldn't touch him if he did that. That's how you start draining the swamp. Truly draining the swamp. I love it. What do you think? 844-DIG-CHAD. Get you on board for that. 844-DIG-CHAD. And speaking of patriotism and the 4th of July and independence, the Nike story and the Betsy Ross flag keeps percolating. Wait till you hear what Senator McConnell said about it. Greg Knapp in for Chad Benson.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show. Glad you're with me. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you're on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD, and Twitter, you can follow him at Chad Benson Show. Yesterday we told you about Nike putting in charge a new CEO. It's Colin Kaepernick is now the CEO of Nike because he gets to tell them what shoes they can sell. Because he didn't like it. How dare you put out a shoe that has the American flag on it? Because, there was the original American flag, the Betsy Ross flag. Hey, do you guys remember when Betsy Ross used to be a hero to women? Remember the feminists thought Betsy Ross was awesome? Now, evidently, she's associated with slavery. So you cannot have the Betsy Ross flag on a Nike shoe because the CEO, Colin Kaepernick, has told them that they can't. And they're worried about the Twitterverse. The disproportionate influence of the Twitterverse. You get 4,000 so-called woke, so-called social justice warriors going after Nike, and they will just melt down like a snowball on a hot plate. And so they've panicked, and they've pulled the shoe. We told you about that. Now we have Senator Mitch McConnell responding to this. He was speaking in Lexington, Kentucky, and here's what he had to say. Cut 7.
So if we're in a political environment where the American flag has become controversial to Americans, I think we got a problem. I hope Nike either releases these shoes or some other shoemaker picks up the flag, puts it on a pair of shoes, and starts selling it. I'll make the first order.
Awesome. And more politicians are chiming in on that. We had the governor of Arizona yesterday say we were going to pull away any kind of in financial incentives we were going to give to Nike to build one of their plants here. But New Mexico says, hey, we'll take it. So here we go with that kind of game. The idea, though, that Nike, who makes so much money off Americans, is going to cave to somebody who says the American flag is offensive. Well, not the American flag, only the Betsy Ross American flag. Really? Then why did he kneel during the national anthem? Because the American flag is offensive to him. Because he believes it represents racist cops and a racist culture and a systemically racist nation. Well, he's wrong, but that's what he thinks. He has every right to think it. But Nike's going to jump in on that and expect us to buy their shoes? So good for Senator Mitch McConnell. And then I love this piece by the Wall Street Journal editorial board, Nike's Patriotic Fumble, because they're talking about how Nike is so hypocritical. Nike works in China. China, that oppresses its people today. Not 1770 when there was slavery here, but today. Sweatshop labor. And if China says jump, Nike says how high. So here's the Wall Street Journal saying that, last year, the company launched an ad campaign featuring a black and white photo of Colin Kaepernick bearing the words, believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. Of course, Kaepernick didn't sacrifice everything. Sacrificing everything means you give up your life, like you die. Like Jesus sacrificed everything, right? Martin Luther King Jr. sacrificed everything. Our men and women in the armed forces who have died on the battlefields for our freedom sacrificed everything. Colin Kaepernick didn't sacrifice anything. Oh, yes, he did. He didn't get hired by the NFL after he did that. Okay, wait a second. He was already a backup during this time. He didn't lose playing time because of this. Well, he hasn't been hired again. The sports reporting says he's actually been offered, or at least talked about being offered, backup roles as a quarterback in the NFL, and his agent and he decided that it was either a starter or nothing. That's what's been reported in multiple sports outlets. Well, yeah, but he would have been offered a starting job if he hadn't done this. I don't think so. He wasn't playing very well. But still, let's say that did cost him the rest of his NFL career. That's not sacrificing everything. Sacrificing the end of a career where you would have been a backup. And it's increased his popularity with the people he cares about. He cares about the far left. That's where he wants to be popular, and he wants his name, and where he wants his influence. And this has increased his popularity, not decreased it. It's increased his future opportunities with that group. So that's wrong to start with. But now we talk about Nike. Yeah, Nike has every right to cancel its products for any reason it wants to. But the rest of us are entitled to point out that no flag of the United States is a symbol of oppression and racism. Abso-freaking-lutely. No flag of the United States is a symbol of oppression and racism. See, this is where the far left goes so wrong. They'll pick out something that America has done in its past that is wrong. Slavery's wrong. I agree. You know what other country had slavery? Every country on the planet has had slavery. It's been around since the dawn of time. You realize there are still countries in the world where there is slavery. But it's only America. Only America. So we take one thing that happened at some time in America, and they say, therefore, America is evil, and anything that represents America is associated with that evil. So therefore, America is evil, and the symbols of America are evil, and they show oppression. That's the kind of reasoning that people like Colin Kaepernick have. And I agree with the fact that no flag of the United States is a symbol of oppression and racism, because America was founded to do away with oppression and racism. All men are created equal. Yeah, but they didn't mean that at first. You're right that not everybody meant it. But some of the people who wrote that meant it. And they wanted to get rid of slavery from day one. They were abolitionists, but they knew that if they tried that they wouldn't be able to create the United States of America. I mean, sometimes you have to be practical. There is no way that would have happened. Yeah, well, they said that black people weren't even full people. They were 3/5 of a person. You realize why they did that? Yeah, because they're racist. No, actually, the reason that was written in was to decrease the representation of the states that had slaves. Remember, you get more representatives in Congress based on how many people live in your state. So if you counted slaves as a citizen, then they would count towards more representation in D.C., which means it would be harder to get rid of slavery. That's why it was put in there. It was a compromise with the South. The South wanted them counted as full people because they wanted more representation. They don't even understand that. Sometimes it drives me nuts. So, yes, this nation is about freeing people. It's about individual rights for everyone, regardless of your name or your skin color. It's not about oppression. It's not about slavery. Kaepernick's suggestion that it is one with Nike's tacit agreement is political theater based on false history. The idea that our flag is associated with slavery, political theater based on false history. If the president wins re-election, though, perhaps he should write a thank you note to Colin Kaepernick and Nike, because this is the kind of thing that people look at and say, you know what? Trump's right. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on program. 844-DIG-CHAD and you're in. Oh, the last couple days I've been telling you about the attack on the journalist in Portland by Antifa. Antifa, they're the so-called anti-fascists, but they're the real fascists. They wear black clothes and black masks, and they create mobs in the streets, and they do property damage, and they attack journalists, and they try to get in fights. They carry baseball bats and other weapons on their body. And there are certain liberal cities that have basically had their police stand down and let these people shut down roads and throw rocks and break windows and attack people because they disagree with them. And the Antifa people who are chanting no hate, no fear are beating people up. And they're saying it's self-defense because, after all, you disagree with me and psychologically you're attacking me. And therefore, I have the right to beat you up. And by the way, I think you're a fascist. And since we killed fascists in World War II, I have the right to beat you up. And that's what they've been doing. So we know about Andy Ngo. We played you his audio yesterday. He's got a piece now in the Wall Street Journal today where he outlines exactly what happened. And I can get you some of those details. But the other part of it is the Portland mayor. Because the Portland mayor, Ted Wheeler, has been accused of telling his police to stand down, to allow Antifa to basically roam free, because after all, we don't want to incite any problems here. And after all, these other people are just bad people, and Antifa is trying to counter-protest them. So, we need to let them do their thing a little bit. That's the allegation. Now, Mayor Ted Wheeler's tried to push back on that and say, no, I haven't been doing that. So he and Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, Republican Texas, got into a little Twitter war. So here's what Mayor Ted Wheeler put out there. He said this: "At least get your facts straight. I ordered no such thing." That's when Cruz said that he ordered them to stand down. So here's Cruz's response. "Okay, Mr. Mayor, you want to talk facts? Great. Fact 1. A conservative journalist was violently assaulted by Antifa thugs on the streets of your city. Fact 2. You said, I support the Portland Police Bureau's decision not to intervene. Fact 3. You have a pattern of withdrawing police protection to further your political agenda. When Antifa terrorists threatened ICE in Portland, you ordered police not to protect federal agents." Do you remember that story? I was outside the ICE building in Portland, and the people working there were afraid to go in and out of the work, and some of them were attacked. And Mayor Ted Wheeler ordered the police not to do anything, said the federal government could protect a federal building. Remember that? So Ted Cruz is just ripping him, and he's totally right, because here comes Portland Police Association President Daryl Turner. Now, he's accusing Mayor Wheeler of holding back the police in their law enforcement efforts. Carlos Garcia reporting. So it's not just Senator Ted Cruz saying this. It's the Portland Police Association president saying this. That, yes, the mayor of Portland is telling the police to stand down on the Antifa thugs. So here's what the Portland Police Association president Daryl Turner said, quote, "It's time for our mayor to do two things. Tell both Antifa and Proud Boys," Proud Boys is the other group that was protesting that weekend, "tell both Antifa and Proud Boys that our city will not accept violence in our city and remove the handcuffs from our officers and let them stop the violence through strong and swift enforcement action. Enough is enough." So, Mayor Wheeler, you can act like you haven't done anything, and, oh, no, it's just all these right-wing wackos saying that I told the police to stand down. I would never tell the police to stand down. Well, your own police association president is saying that that's exactly what you did. And you can't do that in the United States of America. Oh, Andy No's got himself an attorney now. Wait till you hear what she says she's going to do about all this. We'll hit that in a second. And do you have Hulu, Netflix, Stream on Demand? Well, there may be a problem with it. I'll explain. Greg Knapp in for Chad Benson on The Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
And my name is Greg Knapp in for Chad. You can find out more about me at GregoryBKnapp.com, Knapp. And I've got my new podcast out, Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion. Nothing to do about politics. Check it out on Apple Podcast. Appreciate you being with me, and I hope you have a great 4th of July and a celebration of your independence. Well, I told you about Andy No. He is the conservative, gay, half Vietnamese journalist. Now, the reason I tell you all those different details about him is because he says he thinks that's why he was targeted by Antifa, including the fact that he's been pointing out when they have broken the law and gone to the police with his videotape, and the police have done nothing. And so he got beaten up, and he got attacked, and he had a brain hemorrhage, and he may have short-term memory loss for 6 months. Well, he's got an attorney now, Harmeet Dillon, and she said, "I'm going to sue everybody who the facts and the law support being sued." Said people responsible for the attack on Mr. No have not been held responsible, and law enforcement is aware of the names of those people, at least some of them, because they provided them to them, including video. But police were not seen in the video of No's attack. And Dillon argued that the authorities in the city of Portland were not adequately prepared for what they should have known would be a violent confrontation between the two protesting groups, Fox News reporting. And she explained, although the police chief is responsible for designing a plan and presence, the mayor and other city leaders give specific instructions to law enforcement during such events. The situation on the ground in Portland and policing is so bad that the sheriffs of the adjoining counties have refused to send mutual aid to Portland because they don't want their own officers to be attacked. In other words, they know that this is so bad and the police are not allowed to do their jobs that they're not going to send their police to be just standing around window dressing and maybe even getting attacked and not being able to defend themselves. So they're suing. Good. It's about time. I mean, you cannot let the inmates run the asylum. You've got these people who are a mob. They're shutting down streets. They're vandalizing property. They're attacking people, and they're not doing anything about it. You can't allow that. So good. I hope this might start to change something. Hey, do you have Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, other kind of on-demand programming, maybe through your satellite or cable provider? Nielsen has a new study out, and it says you have so many options to choose from that sometimes you just give up watching TV. Wait, what? Wait, what? Nielsen's new total audience report says the average TV watcher takes about 7 minutes to figure out what they want to watch. You know, you sit down, you turn it on, and then you're like, oh, man, what am I going to watch? I could watch something on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, or there's this whole on-demand thing, and the menu over here for pay-per-view, and then there's this, I don't even know, there's YouTube. I forget it, man. I'm just not watching it. What?
Greg,
Yeah.
the most stress in my day is when I'm sitting down trying to figure out what to watch, and there's just nothing.
Thank you. Adam, that's what I was going to say, is that maybe the reason people are taking 7 minutes to figure it out is they want to actually find something good to watch, right? And there's so many bad choices that it takes you at least 7 minutes to go, oh, okay, there's something that I want to watch. Are you like me, Adam? Here's the thing. I find a show I like, and then the season's over, I'm like, oh, man. I mean, like, I watched Jean-Claude Van Damme, I think it's just called JCVD, on Amazon Prime, because it's hilarious. It's like a spoof on Van Damme's films, and he's starring in it, making fun of himself. I thought it was hilarious. I think it's great. Evidently, there's only one season. So now that it's done, I'm like, okay, nothing to watch again. So I'm at least 7 minutes in, trying to figure out what I'm going to watch next, because half the stuff I click on is horrible.
It's a depressing day, Chad. It's tough, Greg.
Yep. Well, the good news is if you just give up, maybe you'll go do something good, like go outside or read a book. Read a book? What's that? Okay. My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad Benson. We're going to talk about the illegal alien problem next. Hang in.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And my name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you're on board. 844-DIG-CHAD. You can also go to thechadshow.com, and don't forget on Twitter at Chad Benson Show. We've been talking about illegal immigration a lot this week because it's just, man, it's all over the place. You've got the Democrats becoming the open borders people. Really, they are. That's a right-wing talking point. Well, hang on just a second, because what if I told you that one of Obama's people is saying exactly that? What? No way. Okay, let's go to the latest. We've got Jay Johnson. If you remember, he was the DHS guy under Barack Obama. And he's coming out and saying the Democrats are becoming the party of open borders. Now, what he's talking about is Cory Booker, Democrat, New Jersey. He came out yesterday and said that he has a plan to virtually eliminate immigration detention. Without waiting for Congress to act, Cory will stop the treatment of immigrants as criminals, close inhumane DHS facilities, end the use of for-profit detention facilities, and end unnecessary barriers for refugees and those seeking asylum to virtually eliminate immigration detention. So wait a second. So what you're saying is you're not going to detain any of the illegal aliens who come across the border? That's right. And you're not going to say it's a crime anymore to come? That's right. And so, isn't that open borders? No, that's a right-wing talking point. Well, here comes Jay Johnson, former DHS secretary under Obama, and he said, you know what, guys? Pushing to decriminalize illegal border crossings is tantamount to open borders. Quote, this is tantamount to declaring publicly that we have open borders. That is unworkable, unwise, and does not have the support of a majority of American people or the Congress. And if we had such a policy, instead of 100,000 apprehensions a month, it will be multiples of that. End quote. That is not some right-wing website. That is not President Trump trying to scare you. That is not somebody who hates brown people. That is a brown person. That is Jay Johnson, Obama's DHS secretary, saying this will not work, guys, and you are pushing open borders. And it's about time somebody said it who the left can't attack. Oh, don't worry, they will. They'll attack him. He now, of course, is going to be persona non grata with the far lefties because he's telling the truth about the illegal immigration problem. All right, so far we've got the Democrats raising their hand that they want to give all illegal aliens free government health care. And, of course, free means paid for by you and me. And now we've got them all saying, except maybe one, that they want to decriminalize illegal immigration. And now Cory Booker says he wants to totally get rid of, virtually eliminate immigration detention. And so, yeah, Jay Johnson is speaking up and saying that is tantamount to open borders. It's unworkable, and you will get more illegal aliens. That's what we talked about. You incentivize something, you get more of it. If you tell people we're not going to detain you once you get here, then of course more people are going to come. It's common sense. And so what we've got right now is the Democratic candidates for the president are all catering to non-Americans more than they're catering to Americans. Now, Beto O'Rourke went to Mexico in order to campaign for president. And they think this is a winning ticket. They think this is a great idea, that this is going to do it. They're going so far left, I don't think there's any coming back from that. I don't care if you do win the nomination and try to pivot towards the center. I think it's too late by then with this kind of stuff. We got some polling out. It's a 20-point spread of more people saying that we should not give illegal aliens free health care to the ones that say that you should. This is not going to go well for the Democrats. I kind of hope they keep doing it because people are figuring this out. This ain't going to work. And then there was this one just yesterday, or 2 days ago now, rather, when Jay Johnson was asked about the detention centers down at the border. Here's what he said. Quote, chain link barriers, partitions, fences, cages, whatever you want to call them. They were not invented on January 20, 2017, okay? So here's Jay Johnson saying, look, guys, this was going on before Trump became president because we had a problem down at the border under Obama, if you remember, and we did the same thing. This is Jay Johnson admitting it. Now, he said, during that 72-hour period, when you have something that is a multiple, like 4 times of what you're accustomed to in the existing infrastructure, you got to find places quickly to put kids. You can't just dump 7-year-old kids on the streets of McAllen or El Paso. And so these facilities were erected. They put those chain link partitions up so you could segregate young women from young men, kids from adults, until they were either released or transferred to HHS. And that's what we're still trying to do. That's why we just allocated $4.5 billion, because these facilities that we've had up, even the ones with the fencing, they're just not enough. So if you got a facility built for 300 people and 500 people are in there, yes, there's going to be overcrowding. There's a big story out today that there was the watch group that went down and toured these facilities and said that people were putting up on the windows signs of how long they'd been detained and how long it had been since they'd had a shower, and no doubt about it. There were 80 people in a cell for 40 people. We don't have the room. So when that happens, there are fewer showers. You're held longer. There are fewer hot meals. Some of these kids hadn't had a hot meal in a week. They've had meals. They've been fed 3 times a day and snacks, but they haven't had hot meals. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of when you have a hurricane. You know, I live in Florida, so it's when you have a hurricane, sometimes you have to evacuate, and sometimes you get stuck at a shelter. And if it's a bad hurricane and that shelter's overwhelmed, you may not get a shower for a week. You may sleep on the floor on your sleeping bag instead of on a cot. You may have to share space with somebody else. It might not be very comfortable. Does that mean it's a concentration camp? It means we're struggling to make things work because we're overwhelmed. And so when you come into the country illegally and you come across a huge wave of humanity, how in the world then is it our fault that you might not get a shower every day? We're not making people drink out of toilet water. That is total nonsense. And I've got some interesting information on that as well. But you got to understand what's going on here and just how bad it is. And you got people like Senator Cory Booker, Democrat in New Jersey, trying to make it worse. Virtually no immigration detention. Now, how in the world do you think that's going to make things better is beyond me, but that's what he's trying to say. Meanwhile, we've got Representative Frederica Wilson, Democrat, Florida. You may remember her. She's the one with the ubiquitous cowboy hat, even though she's from Florida. And some people in Florida wear cowboy hats. You're right. I understand. Listen, I did felony probation and parole in Osceola, Florida, Kissimmee, St. Cloud, and one of my territories was Yeehaw Junction. I'm not making that up. That's the name of the town. So, yeah, Yeehaw Junction, there were a lot of cowboys, and there were people wearing cowboy hats. I absolutely agree. It just seems a little weird to have a congresswoman wearing a pink cowboy hat everywhere she goes. But, hey, that's her style. Good for you, Frederica. You go, girl. But she is very upset that there's a private Facebook group where people said mean things. And they said mean things about a congresswoman. And they shouldn't be able to do that. Okay, listen, I told you yesterday that I don't like the private Facebook group, and I don't think they should have said mean things about AOC and said we should have a GoFundMe for somebody to throw a burrito at her and had pictures of her superimposed to make it look like she was performing a sex act on President Trump. I don't think any of those things are good. But guess what? That was 3 people. You realize there are 9,500 people in that Facebook group. 3 people posted those things. We don't even know who those people are. We don't know if they're current agents. We don't know if they're retired agents. We don't know if there's somebody else that just happened to get into the group. We have no idea. So 3 out of 9,500, and there's AOC saying they're all like that. And I was afraid for my safety. And they were trying to raise money to have someone attack me. It sounded like it was a joke to have somebody throw a burrito at you. Okay, that's not the same. Unbelievable, but I said mean things. So the press takes that and makes it seem like that's everybody who works for the Border Patrol, and therefore, AOC is right. They're all a bunch of evil people that want these children to die. That's a trick that the media has been doing that needs to stop. And you notice they never do it the other way? You know, it's always on one side, not the other side. So here's Frederica Wilson. We got some audio from her today. And she says it's time to go after these people, not just to discipline them like we talked about yesterday. Hey, if it's a current Border Patrol agent who is doing this stuff in that chat room, in that Facebook group, then yeah, he should be disciplined. But that's not all she wants. Cut 4, Frederica Wilson.
Those people who are online making fun of members of Congress are a disgrace. And there's no need for anyone to think that is unacceptable. We're going to shut them down and work with whoever it is to shut them down, and they should be prosecuted. You cannot intimidate members of Congress, threaten members of Congress. It is against the law, and it's a shame in this United States of America.
Wow. Okay, so let me make sure I understand this. When George W. Bush was president, it was the highest form of patriotism to dissent from what he said and to complain about him and to call him every name in the book. Remember Bush, the Nazi? You know, Bush lied, people died, all this nonsense. Then when Obama became president, if you protested anything Obama did, it was because you were racist and you should not even be allowed in polite company. Then President Trump becomes the president, and resistance to Trump is the highest form of patriotism, and you can call him any name you want, and they have. Even worse than they did for George W. Bush. But if you complain about a congressperson or make fun of a congressperson who Frederica Wilson likes, then you should be prosecuted. You got it? You understand how this works now? Look, we have every right to criticize our president, our vice president, and anybody in Congress. She's right that it's illegal to threaten someone, but to say we should go fund me for throwing a burrito at somebody is not something you would ever be prosecuted for in the United States of America. It's a bad joke. Okay? I mean, because otherwise, I guess, at every one of these resistance rallies, everybody who's holding up a sign calling Trump a Nazi and saying that Trump must go and all that, they should all be prosecuted. This is really what she thinks?
Greg, the entire comments section of YouTube would be in jail.
Absolutely right. and all these private Facebook groups. I mean, they're all over the place. And what happens when people go in these private Facebook groups? Unfortunately, and I don't think this is a great thing, but it devolves quickly to the lowest common denominator, and people race to the bottom to see who can come up with the meanest insults, the worst thing to say. How can I be the guy in the Facebook group that everybody goes, oh, wow, did you see what Greg said? That's what it devolves into, unfortunately. Look at the Twitter feed on some of these people and what the trolls are saying. And so now all of a sudden, because it's something that Frederica Wilson doesn't like, now she's going to act like she's royalty and saying that you can't criticize anybody in Congress. We will prosecute you. These people are for freedom? Sure doesn't sound like it. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD. Oh, yeah. Guess what? There's some inconsistencies on what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said was happening at the border. We'll hit that in just a second. I'm Greg Knapp in for Chad Benson on The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show, where we make no apologies, although we do say a few Hail Marys and Our Fathers now and then. Amen.
Amen and amen. My name is Greg Knapp. This is the Chad Benson Show. I'm filling in for Chad. You can go 844-DIG-CHAD on your phone. You can go to thechadshow.com on your internet connection. And we were talking about Frederica Wilson because she's very upset because some people said some mean things on a Facebook group. And it's just not right. 3 people who we don't even know. ProPublica didn't even name them. Are they current ICE agents or Border Patrol agents? Are they former ones? Are they not affiliated at all? And it was 3 out of 9,500 people. And it was some mean things that they shouldn't have said. And they should be disciplined. Frederica Wilson, no, prosecuted. We got to hear that one more time. Cut 4.
People who are online making fun of members of Congress are a disgrace.
Disgrace.
And there's no need for anyone to think that is unacceptable. We're going to shut them down and work with whoever it is to shut them down, and they should be prosecuted. You cannot intimidate members of Congress, threaten members of Congress. It is against the law, and it's a shame in this United States of America.
You know what's a shame is that she's a congresswoman in the United States of America. That's really a shame. I mean, it's a shame that there are people who elected her. I mean, really, if you look at this woman's career, and, it's horrible. It's awful. It's a shame that we have people that are elected like that. So she thinks that because people are making fun of members of Congress, they should be prosecuted. This is not Russia. This is not China. This is not North Korea. You're allowed to make fun of people. Prosecute them. And she's got to work on her grammar a little bit. Did you hear this? She said, there's no need for anyone to think that is unacceptable. Okay, that was a double negative. So if there's no need to say it's unacceptable, then isn't it acceptable? Why are you picking on her like that? I'm just saying it's kind of hard to follow. I think I know what she means. She means that she wants power over the little people because she should be able to say whatever she wants about you and about the president. But if you complain about her, then you should be prosecuted. Okay, I think we got it now. And I was telling you about the inconsistencies coming out. I told you about Ocasio-Cortez yesterday saying that women are being told to drink out of the toilet bowl. I mean, they're told to drink toilet water. Well, this is what a CBP agent said to Fox News. This is what happened with the migrant drinking water from the toilet. She wanted water. She didn't know how to use the faucet in the cell, and she drank from the toilet. She never told AOC that we made her drink from the toilet. AOC, of course, changed it. This was when the migrant was apprehended and brought into the facility. That's what he told the Washington Examiner, So, no. Nobody was told to drink out of the toilet. The person thought that's where the water was and then learned that the sink was attached to it. But that's not what we were told, was it? All right. My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad Benson. This is The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And my name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad Benson on The Chad Benson Show. Hey, to learn more about me, GregoryBKnapp.com, Knapp.com, and my new podcast, not about politics at all, is available on Apple Podcast, iTunes. Just type in Gregory Knapp, and it'll pop right up. Find your purpose, live your passion. Love for you to give that a listen and subscribe. We're talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her inconsistencies. She said some very interesting things when she was down on the border. Let's hear cut one from AOC.
Say it again in English, please. There's abuse in these facilities. There's abuse. This was them on their best behavior, and they put them in a room with no running water, and these women were being told by CBP officers to drink out of the toilet. They were drinking water out of the toilet, and that was them knowing a congressional visit was coming. This is CBP on their best behavior, telling people to drink out of the toilet.
Did you see somebody actually do that while you were?
And, of course, she rolled up the window and drove away because she did not see anyone drinking water out of the toilet. And according to the Washington Examiner, had a CBP agent who was close by AOC at the facility and said, here's the story she heard. Quote, so this is what happened with the migrant drinking water from the toilet. She wanted water, didn't know how to use the faucet in the cell, and drank from the toilet. She never told AOC that we made her drink from the toilet. AOC, of course, changed it. This was when the migrant was apprehended and brought into the facility. In other words, she had just gotten there, didn't know what was going on, didn't know how to use everything. We did not tell her to drink out of the faucet. By the way, all the water in there is potable water. And we did not tell them to drink out of the toilet. Quote, I can tell you with the utmost confidence that the migrants, anyone and everyone in our custody at all of our facilities, have ready access to fresh water. I've never heard in 26 years of being in this business ever heard of that type of allegation being made. Yeah, exactly. Oh, and you want to know, again, the tolerant left? I just saw this. This is Red State has this up. There's this 8-year-old girl who looks like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And so she's been doing this little thing she calls mini AOC. So her parents have been letting her do this, and she's wearing glasses like AOC has, and she's done her hair just like her, and she really does look like a mini Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And evidently, she's been all over social media with these funny little videos. Now, I'm not a big fan of having your kid get into politics because your kid isn't old enough to really know what they're doing, and so you're pretty much just using your kid, 8 years old. Okay, fine. But guess what the left has done? They doxed her, and they doxed the family. And the death threats are so bad that they are deleting all of their daughter's social media content because they're afraid for their daughter's safety. The dad's handle is sick and tirade. Like, sick and tired, but sick and tirade. And he says his daughter, Ava, will not be doing any more mini AOC content. Quote, the left's harassment and death threats have gone too far for our family. We have been getting calls on our personal phone numbers, and for our safety and our child's safety, we deleted all mini AOC's accounts. Isn't that nice? Doxing a child. Threatening the life of a child and her family because you don't like your heroine, AOC, having somebody make fun of her. Now, remember, if this, could you imagine if there was a little boy making fun of Trump and Trump supporters were threatening the life of that little boy and doxing him, what the media would be doing with this story and what the Democrats running for president would be doing with that story? But because it's the other side, well, what do you expect? I mean, that person's horrible. How dare they use their child that way? Right? I love this one. A guy put up on Twitter, the gray one wrote this. He said, nothing says tolerance, love, and inclusion and diversity like threatening to kill an 8-year-old girl. But conservatives are the Nazis, remember? Mm-hmm. So we're not allowed to poke fun or parody anybody anymore. That's all done. That's all gone. Nope, can't do that because, as Frederica Wilson said, we should prosecute you for that. What a bunch of hypocrites. What a bunch of hypocrites. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD. You can also go online to thechadshow.com. Furthermore, we move on in the illegal immigration stories because there's just a ton of them today. I saw this story, and tell me what your initial reaction is. Here's the headline. Catherine Tully McManus writing. Department of Homeland Security faces pressure to accept diapers, soap donations for detained migrants. Okay, I saw the headline. I'm like, whoa. You're telling me American citizens are concerned about the people in these detention centers, rightly so, because they're overwhelmed. And so they're saying, hey, let's donate some diapers, let's donate some soap, let's donate some things that would help those people, taken care of there, right? And we're saying no? That's crazy. Why would we not accept those donations? Isn't that the first thing that popped into your head? And then I started thinking to myself, I bet there's a reason. Knowing that it's the government, I bet there's a really stupid reason why we are rejecting those donations at these detention facilities. Sure enough, I found it deep in the article. Here we go. Under the Anti-Deficiency Act, government agencies cannot spend any money or accept any donations other than what Congress has allocated to it. What? Okay, let me translate. By law, they're not allowed to accept any donations unless Congress says they can, specifically. So as much as these detention facilities might want to take these diapers and take the soap and take whatever people want to bring down, by law, they are not allowed to. We got a smart government, don't we? I mean, really, some of this stuff is just pull your hair out, put needles in my eyes, crazy. So we've got a couple of people trying to change that. Representative Chip Roy, Republican, Texas, introduced a bill last week that would allow the agency to take in the donated supplies, to override that law, or I guess amend to that law. Senator Ted Cruz is calling for DHS to accept the donations, but you got to pass an amendment to the law. The reason they're not accepting it isn't because they don't want to; it's because of what the law says, because of the idiots in Congress and the way they wrote it. And now we're getting to the point. Okay, now we're finally getting to the point where the left isn't saying this is a fake crisis; they're admitting it's a real crisis. And it's a humanitarian crisis, and some on the far left just want to do open borders, but some on the far left are starting to understand this is going to cost them the election, and we can't really run a country this way. Fareed Zakaria, not exactly a conservative, not exactly a fan of President Trump, had to say this on CNN, and it had to kill him. He said, "It pains me to say this, but Trump is right. The United States faces a crisis with the asylum system. Democrats might hope the out-of-control situation at the southern border undermines Trump's image among his base as a tough guy, but they should be careful. It could actually work to the president's advantage. Since 2014, notice that year, 2014, the flow of asylum seekers into the U.S. has skyrocketed. Last year, the immigration courts received 162,000 asylum claims. That's a 240% increase from 2014. We've got 300,000 people backlogged in our asylum system right now. The average case has been pending for more than 700 days. What? Almost 2 years is the average backlog on these cases. It's also clear the rules surrounding asylum are now vague, lax, and being gamed. Yep. Exactly what President Trump talked about when he gave that speech on TV and the left went nuts. He's saying that these people are all faking it. He's saying that nobody deserves asylum. That's not what he said. He said we got to separate out the difference between the fake claims and the real claims, but the left went nuts on it. And here's Fareed Zakaria saying he's right. Some applicants for asylum have some awfully suspiciously similar stories with awfully suspiciously similar language. I don't know, maybe as if somebody actually coached them on it. Maybe as if they actually had note cards they were reading from. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine that would happen, but kind of like that. And many simply use the system to enter the U.S. and then disappear into the shadows. Now, asylum was supposed to be for a small number of people in extreme circumstances. It was developed after World War II so that the Holocaust would never happen again, and we wouldn't keep people from coming into the country to survive something like that. And now it's morphed into, hey, I'm in a rough neighborhood. Hey, I'm a domestic violence victim. hey, I don't have a lot of money. That's not what asylum is for. And liberal judges, not Congress, have shifted what asylum was into that. Applications from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador have surged, but the murder rate in those countries has been cut in half at the same time. Now remember, murder rate isn't supposed to be part of this anyway. Asylum. More broadly, hundreds of millions of people around the globe live in poor, unstable regions where threats of violence abound. So do they all get to come in now? To bypass the normal process of getting in? See, remember, this is the other part that's been left out. You can apply for asylum through a legal port of entry. You're just going to have to wait. So they don't want to wait, so they come in illegally, claim asylum, and then disappear into the United States. And somehow that's okay. That's what the left wants now. Now, listen to what Fareed Zakaria, a far lefty on CNN, says. The criteria for asylum needs to be rewritten and substantially tightened. What? Could you imagine if Trump gave a speech on that today? You know, listen, we got a huge problem with this immigration situation, and so we've got to make sure that we understand what asylum really is, and we've got to rewrite that law and make sure the judges go by it. The left would go nuts. And the other thing we need to do, we need to get enough judges down there that we need to have special judges down at the border right now for everybody coming in new, so that within 20 days, they're either allowed to stay, they get asylum, or they're sent back home. That's it. And then we need extra judges to get rid of this backlog, and we need to let people know this isn't going to be allowed to continue. It's not going to be allowed to continue. And meanwhile, we got a problem with the census. Now, President Trump has just given up on the idea of asking the question, are you a U.S. citizen in the 2020 census? We'll get into that in just a second. And I also want to tell you about a hip-hop star going to Saudi Arabia. No big deal? Well, maybe you need to know a little bit more about the story and what that means when it comes to freedom and boycotts in the U.S. It's all coming up. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad Benson on The Chad Benson Show.
Being antisocial sucks. Hang with Chad's friends on Facebook, The Chad Benson Show. And if you just need some alone time, head on over to Twitter at Chad Benson Show. Either way, we can't wait to meet the real you.
And my name is Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Benson Show. We were talking about the illegal immigration situation, and big news today, the 2020 census will not have the question, are you a United States citizen? The Trump people just dropped it. They haven't told us exactly why, except the obvious reason. The Supreme Court, 5-4, with Roberts jumping ship, came up with this ridiculous nonsense that, hey, you don't have a good reason to put the citizenship question in here because the reason you're giving us just seems like you contrived it. So therefore, no. We're going to send it back to the lower courts, and then it can work its way back up here again if you have a better reason. So you can come up with a better reason. I mean, we're not saying it's unconstitutional to have this question on here. We're just saying you didn't have a good reason given to put it on here. So therefore, we're going to say no. Knowing that there was no way they were going to get it all the way through the courts again in time to print out the census form and get the census done. Trump tried to say, we're going to delay this as long as we can. No, you're not. So they're done. So here's what's crazy about this. All we're asking is, are you a citizen of the United States of America? I mean, we're asking all kinds of stuff. How much money do you make? How big's your house? Is anybody in the house going to college? Is anybody here being raised by their grandparents? Just on how many toilets are in your house? I mean, all kinds of things on the long form. But we can't ask, are you a United States citizen? Why? Because we didn't like your reasoning. Too bad. There is nothing in the United States Constitution that says we have to have a certain reason to put this question on the census form. I think the easy answer is we'd kind of like to know how many illegal aliens are in our country. Well, that means some illegal aliens may not answer. So? Well, that means they may not be counted. So? Well, that means we might not get as many representatives in Congress. Okay, let me ask you something. Why should you have a representative in Congress for somebody who's not supposed to be here? What do you mean? Well, if you're in the country illegally, why should you have representation in Congress? Because we're human beings. Well, there are over 8 billion human beings on the planet. They don't all have representation in Congress because they're not Americans. And why should our money, our taxpayer money, go to people who aren't supposed to be in this country, which is also what you do based on the number of people in your state and in your district. See, to me, that's the reason, and we should just be absolutely 100% honest about it and not feel bad about it at all. Meanwhile, 2/3 of voters say the citizenship question should be allowed on the census. 67% of Americans. 52% of Democrats think that question should be on the census. But no, not the Supreme Court. No, no, no. Huh. Interesting, isn't it? Let's go to Saudi Arabia for a moment. Saudi Arabia said Wednesday they're bringing in Nicki Minaj to perform. Okay. Do you know who Nicki Minaj is? Nicki Minaj is a hip-hop artist. Her videos, and the reason you'll understand why I'm telling you all this in a second. Her videos have a lot of profanity in them, a lot of cleavage in them, a lot of butt cleavage in them. Very scantily clad women. They're very over the top sexual, and she's going to perform in Saudi Arabia. Now, the reason you needed to know all that is because Saudi Arabia is ultra conservative. Up until very recently, they had their religious police that would lock you up if your music was too loud at a party. I mean, like, right away. Where men and women are not allowed to mingle in places like restaurants and coffee shops and public schools. Only recently have they started to allow women to drive. And they're going to have Nicki Minaj. Oh, by the way, women are told that when they're out in public, they need to wear the abaya, which is pretty much you're covered head to toe. Your face can be shown. And yet, Nicki Minaj is going to come perform? And by the way, I have a question. I wonder if would Nicki Minaj perform in Georgia now? Because, you know, we've got all these entertainers and celebrities who say they won't go to Georgia anymore because Georgia had the audacity to pass a law that says if a baby's heart is beating in utero, then we shouldn't kill it. So for that, they're going to boycott Georgia. But they'll go play in Saudi Arabia, which just now is allowing women to drive, treats homosexuals horribly, bans Bibles. You can't bring a Bible into Saudi Arabia. You can't build a Christian church in Saudi Arabia. Gay people are treated like third-class citizens, women like second-class citizens, and yet you got Nicki Minaj going there. A video on Twitter from a Saudi Arabian woman said this. She's going to go and shake her A, and all her songs are indecent about sex and shaking A, and then you tell me to wear the abaya? What the hell? That's a pretty good question. She's not the only one, by the way. Over the past several months, you've had Mariah Carey, Enrique Iglesias, the Black Eyed Peas, Sean Paul, DJs, David Guetta, and Tiesto. I wonder if they'll play in Georgia. Nah, no hypocrisy from the left. My name's Greg Knapp in for Chad Benson on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Greg Knapp in for Chad on The Chad Benson Show. You can dial up at 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD. Of course, you can also go online to thechadshow.com. Happy 4th of July. I know it's a little early, but I'm just saying, get ready. I hope that you have great plans for it and that you stay safe and you don't blow off a finger. 844-DIG-CHAD and you're on board. I was telling you just a little while ago that the Trump administration has given up on putting the citizenship question on the census form. I mean, it was all over the place. That's the news. Not going to do it. Not enough time. Supreme Court said you got to go back to the lower courts to come up with a better reason. It's just going to take too long. Well, you got to check at the real Donald Trump. At real Donald Trump, his Twitter feed. Here's what he says today, this morning. The news reports about the Department of Commerce dropping its quest to put the citizenship question on the census is incorrect, or to state it differently, fake. We are absolutely moving forward, as we must, because of the importance of the answer to this question. So I don't know what to tell you. I hope that's true, because I think it should be on the form. We went over all the reasons why just a little while ago, but we were told it wasn't. Now we're told it is. I don't know, man. Sometimes I just can't keep up with it, but I thought you'd want to know. And speaking of the White House, Vice President Pence yesterday, we were talking about the emergency or the incident or the recall or what. So many different things were said about Vice President Pence yesterday. First, we were told that his plane was told to turn around. It had already taken off, and it was told to turn around because of something. Then we were told, no. He never got to the plane, but he was going to the plane, and then he was told to come back. And don't worry, it was just an incident. But first, we were told it was an emergency. And then we were told, hey, don't worry, it has nothing to do with national security. Well, I didn't think it was national security, but now I'm worried that it was national security. And don't worry, it has nothing to do with the president's health. Well, wait a second. Why do you keep throwing out the things that it's not? I'm getting a little confused here. And normally this White House has been leaking like a sieve, right? Just about anything you can think of has come out about the Trump White House. And yet today, here we are, still haven't heard exactly what happened. If you've heard that and that's popped up, let me know. But I still have not heard the exact reason that this happened yesterday. Very few answers for the abrupt cancellation of Pence's trip to New Hampshire. That's the very latest from CNN. Very, very few answers on that. So it just gets you to start thinking, why would the vice president be recalled like that? Now, some people are saying it's because of those 14 sailors from Russia that were killed on the super secret nuclear submarine that Russia has. What, they haven't have talks about that was something else going down there. But why would they not tell us what's going on here? And it's kind of a little bit weird. And it makes me think, is this vice president more integral to the Trump presidency than we know? That Donald Trump really values his opinion, that there's something that he wanted to talk to him about? Or is it that maybe they thought that Vice President Pence would have to take over for President Trump for some reason yesterday? But we don't know. Senior administration official says this is not health related for the vice president or the president. Nothing related to national security. So what was it? We still don't know. The vice president's press secretary wrote on Twitter that the event in New Hampshire would be rescheduled very soon, but it won't be today. No public events listed for him today. Does that strike you as weird? It just strikes me as weird that we're not told about that. Well, then what is going on? 844-DIG-CHAD, if you have an idea. I will take ideas. Like I said, usually the vice president is not that important to the presidency. The time that he becomes important is if something happens to the president. Right? We've been told in the past, historically, that this job is not worth a warm bucket of spit. Basically, you go to funerals and you go on speaking tours. But you're really not, and every once in a while you have to break a tie vote in the Senate. Other than that, it's a pretty easy gig. So why does the vice president have to be recalled? Try and keep you up to date on that one. Meanwhile, since we are talking about the 4th of July, let's get into the fake crisis that the left has generated over the fact that President Trump wants a couple tanks on the mall. It's a dictatorship. This is unbelievable. He's just trying to tell the people that he's ready to crush them if they disagree with him. I bet he's going to stay more than 2 terms. I bet even if he loses this term, he's going to stay there again. And there's nothing we can do to stop him unless we get the resistance moving and we just really get this going. So you know how crazy it is. Joy Reid is over at Crazy Town MSNBC. And so Joy Reid has to play to her base. If she wants to have any ratings at all, they got to keep the few hundred people that are watching that channel, and they're all wearing their tinfoil hats sitting in the far left corner of the room. So here she is explaining that, the real reason President Trump wants some tanks here is because he really loves dictators. Cut 5, please.
You mentioned, France and Kim Jong-un, who, Donald Trump greatly admires Kim Jong-un. He sort of aspires to be sort of a mini, Putin or Kim Jong-un. He wants to have that kind of absolute power. He claims Kim Jong-un's people just adore him. Well, they have no choice because he'd throw them in a gulag and probably kill them.
He does not claim that his people adore him. He has spoken of the atrocities of North Korea. Now, I told you the other day I didn't like how flattering Trump was when he was with Kim Jong-un on TV. When he said, it's my honor to be here. I don't like that kind of talk. But This idea that he wants to be a dictator. Based on what? Based on what? And look at what he's done. Has he ever done anything yet in his presidency? I don't care what the Supreme Court says. I'm just doing it. No. Even when he says with the census form, he said, well, we gotta work to get this back on the form. We got to do whatever it takes to get this through the Supreme Court. But that's not good enough for people like Joy Reid on MSNBC. And so now she's going to go into this big discussion of why Trump wants a tank in D.C. for the 4th of July and these military flyovers. Of course, we do that at great sporting events, but no. Trump has it for a special reason because he wants to threaten you. Now, there's a lot wrong in what she's saying here, but I'm going to let you hear it first, and then we'll take it apart. Joy Reid, cut 6.
You think about the Bastille Day celebration. What is that celebration about? What is the message that's meant to be sent by the military armada that's rolling down the streets of Paris? It's a message to tyrants. What Bastille Day represents is the victory over tyrannical rule, over the king,
That's right.
over the attempt for the king to return. The storming of the Bastille was about victory over tyrants. What is the message when Kim Jong-un rolls tanks down the streets of his capital? The message is to democracies. It's the messages to people like us, to Western democracies. You better be careful because we, the unified North Korean people, will defeat you. We have nukes. Be afraid of us. So what is the message Donald Trump is trying to send by rolling tanks down Constitution Avenue? Who is that message to? It's certainly not to tyrants because he likes tyrants. He loves tyrants. It's not to Putin. It's not to Kim Jong-un. It's not to the Saudis. Is it to our friends or is it to us? Is it to the resistance in this country? I got tanks. I have this military armada. The message is a threat. But it's always a threat when you roll out your military. But it's to whom is the threat? And I suspect that the threat is to his fellow Americans. And I hate to say that, but I think that Donald Trump styles himself a tyrant, not a defeater of tyrants.
Okay, you don't hate to say that. You love to say that because you think that it makes you more important. And I think it shows that you're speaking power, the truth to power, and that you're this heroine, and you're just so wrong in so many ways on this. Let's take it a little bit at a time. Okay, first of all, when you say the message when Kim Jong-un rolls tanks down the streets, the message is to democracies, to people like us, to Western democracies. You better be careful because we, the unified North Korean people, will defeat you. We have nukes. Be afraid of us. No. Look, we know. All the Western democracies have intelligence agencies that tell them the power of the North Korean military and how many nukes they have. He's not doing that show for us. He's doing that show for his own people and for his own government. So they see that, hey, you try to overthrow me, I got the military. Hey, you think you want to fight me because you don't like living under my thumb? I've got the military, and these guys will kill you. You don't even have weapons. You don't have the Second Amendment in North Korea. We will crush you like a grape. So you better not even think about coming after me, or you should wake up and apologize because I'm coming hard. That's what that is about in North Korea. And then she says, so what's Trump's message to us trying to send rolling tanks down Constitution Avenue? First of all, they're not going to be rolling. They're going to be in the mall. But what is that message to us? Who is that message to? It's certainly not the tyrants because he loves tyrants. He loves tyrants. It's not the Putin. It's not the Kim Jong-un. Okay, now, hang on a second. What has President Trump done to Russia so far? Increased the sanctions. Increased the sanctions from where they were under Obama. Increased our oil and gas production so that we are the number one producer of oil and the number one producer of natural gas in the world. Gotten mad at Germany for doing a deal with natural gas with Russia, saying we shouldn't be doing that. We should be working to not help them as long as they continue to be belligerent. So he's been tougher on Putin in what he's actually done than Obama was. Obama's caught on tape saying, hey, just tell Vladimir that after this next election, it'll be a lot easier for us to work together. Hillary Clinton, we need to hit the reset button. But Trump, who's been tougher on Putin, he loves tyrants. Just like his message isn't to Kim Jong-un. He loves tyrants like Kim Jong-un. Really, that's why he called him Little Rocket Man. Remember that? That's why he said, hey, my nuclear button is bigger than yours, Kim Jong-un. because he's not trying to intimidate tyrants. No, he loves tyrants. Look at what he's done. In Saudi Arabia, guess what? Every administration over the last 50 years has worked with Saudi Arabia because the enemy of the enemy is my friend, and we're trying to find anybody that is close to being a friend in the Middle East besides Israel. And there's an awful lot of oil there. Now, listen, the more that we've been able to increase our oil production, the less we need to work with people like Saudi Arabia. But you still need to try and have somebody in that area that's going to really help you with your big enemies and with the terrorism. But for her to say that this is a threat to Americans, nonsense. A threat to the so-called resistance, as I've said time again, and I got to say it again. The people who are protesting against Trump are not part of any resistance. They are co-opting a phrase that had meaning in World War II. The resistance were these people in France, occupied France. There were Nazis literally living there and people getting killed for working against the Third Reich. So they risked their lives and their families' lives. They risked torture. They risked every possible heinous activity you could think of so they could resist Nazi Germany. They were resistors. These are just idiots running around with signs. Now, look, you have every right to be a protester, but don't fancy yourself some resistance in World War II against a true Nazi dictator fascist system that was killing millions of people. That's just nonsense. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you are in. Did you know there's some special Oreos coming out? Wait till you hear what kind these are. They're political. Wait, what? Greg Knapp in for Chad Benson on The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show, where the sensible center hangs out. Hey, you. That doesn't mean you can put your feet up on the table.
You're despicable.
This is Chad Benson.
And my name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Benson Show. You can find out more about me. My website is GregoryBKnapp.com. Gregory B as in boy, KNAPP.com. And I have a new podcast out. It has nothing to do with politics. It's called Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion. Check it out on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Subscribe. Let me know what you think. I appreciate it. So there's some new Oreos coming out. Well, you can't buy these. They're only giving them away. But there are some new ones coming out. And you think, what is it? Is it a new flavor? Is it triple stuffed? Is it quadruple stuffed? I mean, what is it? What is coming? No, it's political. Oreos are political? Well, yeah, this time they are. I don't understand what these big corporations are thinking getting political. Why would you want to alienate half your audience? I just don't get that when you're a big company trying to serve everybody. So here's what they're doing now. They're working with the National Council of Teachers of English, and here's what they say, quote, "We're proud to celebrate inclusivity for all gender identities and expressions. In partnership with NCTE, we're giving away very special edition pronoun packs." Wait, what? Pronoun packs. And encouraging everybody to share their pronouns with pride today and every day. Okay, let me try and translate this for you. What they're saying is they want, and they're going to put these in the schools. They're giving them away to the schools, K through 12. So they're trying to indoctrinate your children into believing that there are more than two pronouns. You know, he and she. No, we need zir, zer, zer, them. I can't keep up with them. There's a bunch of made-up pronouns now for people who don't like being called he or a she. The problem with that is it's not scientific. The left keeps trying to say they're the party of science, but science says, biology says, there are two genders, male and female, based on your chromosomes. Not based on how you feel, but based on your chromosomes. So what they're trying to indoctrinate the kids into doing is enabling a delusion that biologically you're not male or female, you're whatever you feel like you are. And that there's a huge fluidity in your gender. And so if you feel like you're not a him or a her, then you should be able to force everybody else to call you a zer. That your feelings equal biology, but feelings don't equal biology. Feelings don't equal science. Feelings don't equal what your chromosome makeup is. Feelings do not equal biology, and K through 12 kids should not be indoctrinated into believing that they do equal biology. Look, I'm for loving everybody. I'm for treating everyone kindly. But that does not mean you enable a delusion. That does not mean you force people to say things that are not biologically true. And that's what they're trying to do. And as the Federalist points out, the National Council of Teachers of English are politically far left, and they've been that way for decades. They came out against trained teachers defending themselves from active shooters when they were licensed to do so. Their influence on English curriculum has been to degrade instruction with politicization and gobbledygook, according to the most rigorous research, writes Joy Pullman at the Federalist, and yet they continue to be made mainstream by the mainstream media. So Oreo's now saying we're inclusive of everyone, but of course that's as long as everyone agrees with us. And now they want to teach that to your kids and force them to say something that isn't true. Sound good? I got to tell you what's going on with the World Cup female soccer team. Greg Knapp in for Chad Benson. Chad Benson Show. My name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show, and you can go to thechadshow.com for more, and you can dial up 844-DIG-CHAD if you want to be on the program. Have you been watching the Women's World Cup? Soccer's not really my thing. I've watched a little bit here and there. Yesterday, I totally forgot that they were in the semifinals. I found out that we won, so I popped on the internet and watched the entire match in 2 minutes with the highlights. I'm like, this is the way to watch soccer. I got to watch. It was a 2-1 victory by America. At one point, it looked like it was going to be tied. The English female soccer player that was the one who scored that second goal was deemed to have been offsides by that much. It was really close. So they took that goal away. Then we fouled one of the English players right in the box by the goal, so she got a free kick, but our goalkeeper made an unbelievable save and saved the game. So we won 2-1. Well, here's some controversy, and I want your opinion on this. And Adam, you can jump in on this too. All right, so here's what happens. Alex Morgan scores the second goal for America, and we go up 2-1. She races over to the sideline. You know, everybody likes to celebrate now and wants to make a big move. So she races over to the sideline, stands very prim and proper, and pretends to drink tea. Now, we were playing England. England is known for drinking tea. So many people took this as her little jab at England by pretending to drink tea. And there are people who are ticked. People over on the other side of the pond there in England are not happy, and they think it's just another ugly, arrogant American. And how dare she, and why do you have to do that? And then there are other people saying, hey, man, she was just having fun. She was just rubbing it in a little bit because this is what you do when you're good. Hey, we're good, man. Too bad. We're beating you. And there had been a lot of smack talk back and forth before the game, and a lot of the fans in England and America had talked smack, so it was time to just throw down a little bit of trolling of the English by pretending to drink tea. So what's your take on that?
I'm wondering, Greg, if you think that's got anything to do with the fact that some of the English newspapers are portraying some of our women's soccer players as being far too arrogant, so much so that the French team will be rooting for the English ladies.
Yeah, exactly. That's some of the smack talk. There's no Piers Morgan. Remember, he used to be over here doing news on CNN. He's been really talking about our players, about how arrogant they are. And he has some TV, I think he's on a morning TV news program over there. So he's been talking about that on his TV news program. He's been tweeting out about how arrogant all of our people are and that he wanted their team to take us down a peg or two. And, yeah, I think that's part of it, Adam, is that maybe our girls just said, our women said, hey, if we score, we're going to send him a little message here. And that was her message, stand up and drink a little tea. So I have two thoughts on this. I got mixed emotions. You know, mixed emotions like your mother-in-law going off a cliff in a brand new Cadillac. Mixed emotions. because on the one hand, I say, that's funny. You know, you scored a goal in the World Cup, in the semifinals, put us up 2-1. That's a great moment to celebrate, and it was funny. Go for it. Knock yourself out. More power to you. On the other hand, I played basketball for my school, my high school, junior high school. My high school coach would have benched me for that because his philosophy was twofold. One, never show up the other team. They put in a lot of work to get where they are, just like you put in a lot of work to get where you are, and they deserve your respect, and you don't show up the other team. There's no excuse for that. That is low class. That is not sportsmanship. That's not what you do. I would have been benched and pulled out of the game. No doubt about it. The second thing he always said is, when you score, act like you've done it before. You know, I mean, let's not go nutso here because the game's not over, number one, and you haven't won anything yet. So definitely my old school coach would be like, that's not good. Don't do that. Sit down. Stop it. You're embarrassing us. So I get that because, see, I'm of the opinion, the first part I agree with my old coach. Don't show up the other team. Don't show up the other team. Be all about you and all about your team. And when you score and you do something great, celebrate with your teammates. Get excited. I love it when people in the NFL do their little end zone dances. I love it when they do the group dances because it's a team sport and they know they didn't do it on their own and they're all celebrating together. When somebody does an unbelievable dunk in the NBA and they go, ah, I love it because they're excited. It's awesome. I think it's fantastic. But what you don't have to do is show up the other team because they worked hard too. So focus on you and the team and the awesome goal that you're going for instead of ripping somebody else down. Even if they make fun of you, even if they, why not be above that and just be classy? So I guess now that I'm talking it out loud, I feel more like that there's no need to do that. There's no need to try to show up the other team.
Greg, I'm wondering if you're familiar with the term beefing down.
No, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, this is basically the idea that anybody like a celebrity of a Kevin Durant status or an athlete, a politician, why would you choose to beef with somebody who's of lesser stature than you? It doesn't prop your career up at all.
That's a great point. No, I love that. You're right. There's no, that really does go to another side of this is if you're that much better, you don't need to make fun of them. I think about, remember the dream team that we had that had Larry Bird and Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley. And I mean, every NBA star we had at the time, when we finally were allowed to use pros, we loaded up on that team and we beat everybody by like 30 points. I mean, it wasn't even close. Well, our guys didn't stand around making fun of the other team, right? We were just having fun and laughing with each other and high-fiving, and it was awesome. And it was great to be an American basketball fan because it was almost like an NBA All-Star game every game, and they could try anything they wanted, and it would work because they were so much better than the competition. You don't have to get into it. You're right. You don't have to beef down like that. Here's the other thing. Like, I'm a radio talk show host. I never talk about anybody else's radio show when I'm on the air because in my mind, there are no other shows. Now, obviously, I'm guest hosting for Chad, so I'm going to talk about Chad, but you understand what I'm saying. In my mind, I'm it. I am the show. I'm the only show you want to listen to. Why would I talk about somebody else's show? Why would I, as you talk about, Adam, why would I beef down to that and lift somebody else up to me and act like their show is equal to mine? I'm about me and my show and you, the listener. And what I really should be focusing on is doing the best show I possibly can for you, and that means not talking about other shows. And so if I'm a soccer player, my goal is to play the best soccer I can, and really isn't it to entertain the fans? Because if there aren't any fans, you don't have a game. If there aren't any fans, you're not making any money. So you need to entertain the fans and do the very best you can and get them excited about what you bring to the table. So why point out anybody else? So that's one side of it. Of course, the other side, Adam, is it was funny, dude, and she got him. And so you got the people that like that, and they're all excited. right? I mean, that's part of the fun of something like what is everybody trying to do on Twitter?
This is nationalism, Greg. That's the fun of it. And you know, you want to have that, well, this is our country against your country. I don't know. That little celebration was just a little bit too much for me.
And I agree with you. It's our country versus your country. Usually that's a better play when it's, I don't know, say 1980 hockey, when it's the United States versus the USSR and we're in a Cold War. Now that's different than England. I mean, England. I don't know. But like I said, the purpose of Twitter seems to be who can own the other person on Twitter by ripping them with a funny joke or a slam or something. And so that's kind of spilling over into celebrations in sports now too, right? So, all right. I'd love to know what you think about that. 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD, and you are in. And how about a little audio for you? Do you know who John Hickenlooper is? Now, if you're following politics closely, and you probably are because you're listening to the show, you may know that he's the former governor of Colorado. Did you know he's running for president? I mean, he was on the stage in one of those events last week, but he didn't get much time, and maybe you didn't notice. But he was on MSNBC and talking to anchor Craig Melvin, and Craig was trying to find out how much money you're making. See, you got to make a certain amount of money and poll at a certain level in order to make it into the debates that are coming up. It's moving up now. You got to be at 2% or above, and I forget the exact amount of money you have to raise. And he was saying, hey, look, Pete Buttigieg has raised about $25 million. How about you? And he said, well, maybe not quite as much. And he has a reason that he thinks he hasn't raised as much money. Let's hear from John Hickenlooper, cut 1, please.
Well, we certainly haven't raised $24 million.
Have you raised $2 million, $3 million?
Well, I'm not going to get into it until we pull the numbers together. But the bottom line is for a small campaign like us from Colorado's about 6 million or a little less than 6 million people. It's harder to raise money because we're not promising free health care or, to forgive free tuition for everyone, forgive student debt. We're trying to present a picture of this country and what it can be in the future that will resonate with everyone. And that has, that's a harder vehicle by which to get small donors.
Okay, let's translate. It's hard to raise money on the Democratic side if you're not promising to give away free stuff. That's what he's saying, right? It's hard to raise money on the Democratic side if you're not playing the socialist, walking around handing out money to people. So that's why it's hard for us to raise money. I love this guy's honest, and he's actually an old-style Democrat, which is why he can't get any ground. He's losing employees, volunteers, by the truckload, evidently. And so there's more, though, because now the host is a little intrigued. He's like, oh, wait a second. It sounds like you're saying some of those Democratic plans may be a little bit out there, huh? Let's hear from Hickenlooper, cut 2.
Yeah, I think they'd be very hard to implement. I think, one of the points I've tried to make is, as Democrats, I think we've very clearly got to say that we're not socialists. And many people view those large expansions of government as in some way socialist. And I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying that the Republicans are going to say we're socialists. And I think we very clearly got to say socialism is not the solution.
I mean, some of these things sound socialist. Now, I'm not saying they are, but those Republicans will. And so since they kind of sound like they're socialists and they are kind of pie in the sky and kind of out there, well, maybe we need to tone it down just to take a step back, tap the brakes, and see if we can get back to what America's about and not these pie in the sky ideas that we're not going to get anyway. Because maybe that way we could actually win. Hickenlooper wasn't done, though, because the host kept pressing him on this, and he said, so you're saying other people could perceive these as being huge socialist government programs, huh? Cut 3.
Yeah, well, I think it does represent the fact that there's a lot of large programs that have been proposed that are, could be perceived, and in many ways are, expansions of government, right? If the Green New Deal promises every American a government job. If you look at Medicare for all as portrayed, that implies taking away a health care, private insurance from 180 million Americans. I mean, those are big, I would argue, pie-in-the-sky type programs.
Yeah, I loved his understatement. Many of these programs could be perceived as expanding government. Perceived? If you have a program, the Green New Deal, as they call it, that guarantees everybody a government job, it's not about perceiving expanding government. It's expanding government. You've got a proposition for Medicare for all. That's not perceived as expanding government. That's expanding government. I mean, are you kidding? Hey, at least Hickenlooper admitted it, and that's why he won't be on stage next time. That's why his campaign is just about over, because he's speaking truth to the Democrat power, and they don't like it, and he gone. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD. Charlottesville, Virginia. Did you know that's where Thomas Jefferson was born? Did you know that's where he died? Did you know that he founded the University of Virginia right there in Charlottesville? And did you know Charlottesville has voted now against Thomas Jefferson? I'll explain that in just a second. Greg Knapp in for Chad Benson on The Chad Benson Show.
Warning, no snowflake zone. Uninformed opinions are in danger of melting. The Chad Benson Show.
My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Benson Show. Find out more about me, GregoryBKnapp.com, or my new podcast. Go to Apple Podcasts or iTunes, type in Gregory Knapp, K-N-A-P-P. You'll get Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion, Not About Politics. Would love for you to check that out. Charlottesville, Virginia. Okay, we know the problem that it had with the big protests and all that kind of stuff, but now it's doing something unbelievable. Charlottesville, Virginia. The Charlottesville City Council voted 4-1 Monday to remove the birthday of Thomas Jefferson as a paid holiday. Why? Because he was a slave owner. Yeah, that was a couple hundred years ago, guys. Doesn't matter. He was a slave owner, and there's no way we're going to honor him. Should we tear down Monticello? Should we burn the Declaration of Independence? Are you kidding me? We're gonna judge this man on today's standards when he lived a couple hundred years ago. And this is how far gone we are. Jefferson, born in Charlottesville, died in Charlottesville, founded the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, and Charlottesville now voting against his birthday as a paid holiday anymore, because at one time he owned slaves. Yeah, he wrote the Declaration of Independence. Don't care. He wrote the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. Don't care. He founded the University of Virginia. Don't care. Don't care. Man, I'm living in a bizarro world. I really am, and it's getting worse every day. How about this one? You want to talk about craziness? Fox News reporting there's a church in Kentucky that's been giving away used glasses to the homeless for years. For 16 years, Kentucky church member has been giving away prescription glasses to the poor. It's called the Kendall Optometry Ministry. It's helped thousands of people across 79 countries, and it helps in Kentucky as well. But now the state is shutting it down. Why? Because they say the program's illegal. Now, here's what they're saying is illegal about the program. You're not giving away brand new glasses, and the glasses aren't totally individualized. And they're like, well, I'm giving away glasses that look brand new, and we clean them up and they look great. And you're right, they don't match exactly their prescription, but in every case, it improves the vision of the homeless person. Yeah, but it's not exactly right. Yeah, but it's either this or nothing. Well, then they should have nothing. I can't make this stuff up. I also can't make up this. 3 cops in a donut shop. It's not a joke. It's real. New York City. Sitting there, eating donuts, drinking coffee. Dude walks in, adjusts his shorts. His handgun falls out. Turns out He's a repeat felon, not supposed to have a gun, definitely not in New York City. He's arrested. Dude, do you not know that cops hang out in the donut shops? Come on! Have a happy 4th of July. Greg Knapp for Chad Benson.